podcast. We're at Iridium 77 in Chicago. I'm Joe, and I'm being joined today with Blvck Svm.
What's going on?
Well, thanks for pulling up. This has been long awaited. Like I just said, it's the first video interview in the series, the whole show. So thanks for joining me. For the people here who don't quite know who you are, can you just kind of say like what you are, who you are, what you do?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Blvck Svm. I'm a rapper from South Florida. Currently live in Chicago. That's where I make all my music. Came to Chicago for school in 2014, went to UChicago, graduated 2018, and decided I wanted to push music as my career, and 3 years later I'm here.
So let's talk about the South Florida Chicago thing. Let's just start there. You grew up in South Florida, right? So then you moved out here to go to college?
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in South Florida, and like what are some things that really like still you hold with you today?
South Florida is a really cool place to be, and I didn't really appreciate it when I was younger because I wasn't able to do like adult things, you know, like the only things I was really able to do was like go to the movies. In school, I was in high school and stuff, so I would hang out with my homies, but that was about it. What I really like about South Florida though is how leisurely it is. The weather is so nice that you can kind of do anything any time of year. And compared to Chicago, which is dope in its own right, it's just cold so much of the year that you can't do a lot of things comfortably when it's 10 degrees outside. But Florida, I think, has influenced my music and just kind of me as a person, and in the sense that I just take my time with stuff, and I think even stuff like my delivery, the way that I perform my tracks is like kind of a Florida thing, in that I'm not really in a hurry to get stuff done. It's very calm and collected. If you walk around Florida, especially during the day, people are not really rushing to get places. Everybody's just kind of moving at their own pace, real leisurely. And that's because the weather's so nice, you just gotta enjoy it, you gotta soak it in.
So this is a question I wanted to ask you. Who are your top 3 artists out of Florida, like of all time? And then who are your top 3 out of Chicago?
Top 3 out of Florida all time. I'll be Curry first, Ross second, and I'll put Ski Mask at 3.
No X, huh?
Yeah, I appreciate the music, big fan of the sound itself, but like too much extracurriculars going on.
I get what you're going with that. Yeah, I get what you mean. So
Curry's that guy, yeah.
Denzel Curry's I feel like he's so underappreciated. Yeah. Like I didn't know, I was watching a YouTube video like a week or 2 before we were taping now about Denzel Curry. I didn't know he was making SoundCloud music in like 2010, 2011. I didn't realize he's been around in the game for like over a decade.
I wasn't hip to him.
Yeah,
I didn't start getting hip to him, and honestly other Florida rappers until I came to Chicago and started getting more invested in rap. So when I was in Florida, I listened to what everybody else listened to, like on a national stage. Like I listened to Wayne, I listened to Drake, I listened to all like the super mainstream rappers. And I didn't really branch out too much outside of like Tech Nine and guys like that. It was like as mainstream as you can get for like an independent kind of artist,
So when you first moved to Chicago, is that when you first kind of thought about making music, or?
I had been rapping since the beginning of my high school years. Yeah. I think 9th or 10th grade is when I started freestyling.
Yeah.
Lunch. But I didn't start taking it seriously until I got to Chicago. It was a hobby when I was in Florida, even after I graduated high school. But before I went to college, I would like shoot videos on my phone, like my Android phone, post them on Facebook in this group that I made called Bars. A few of my other friends rapped, so they would post their stuff in there too. But it wasn't until I got to Chicago, I think it was the end of my first quarter there was a hip hop kind of poetry slam at the Arts Cafe that I performed in. I was mad nervous. I didn't know I was supposed to memorize my lyrics. I had like a piece of paper in front of me, my hands were shaking because I couldn't focus on just staying composed, but it was like the most exhilarating moment of my life, like performing a punchline and having people react to it. So that was the moment that I decided I wanted to see if I could really push it, make it something more than a hobby.
Yeah, I feel like Chicago, like, it really opens up people's music. Like, it really expands your music, like, retention, all of that. Because there's just such a huge underground scene here, and not only that, like, there's just a huge emphasis on the mainstream too.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Like,
everybody's really supportive too.
Yeah.
Like, I've noticed that about Chicago, especially, that just the people around you will put you on. And I think if I hadn't been surrounded by so many supportive people, either at UChicago or just in other spaces where I go to poetry slams, like on the north side and stuff, or in the city, or I would just link with other artists in the studio, like, everybody was always super supportive, and that definitely helped me get into a mindset of, like, yeah, I can do this.
So let's get into the UChicago stuff.
Yeah.
Were you dead set on going to UChicago? Because that's a hard school to get into. Like, that's a really hard school to get into.
I applied to college, this program called Questbridge, which is for low-income or first-generation college students. And in order to get a Questbridge school to match with it, you have to rank your top 8 out of all the schools. I don't remember where I ranked UChicago, but it wasn't near the top. But I had been there, like, I had been to visit, so I felt comfortable putting it on my list, because I didn't put any schools on my list that I hadn't been to or, like, known somebody.
Was your visit the first time you were in Chicago?
Second time.
Second time?
Yeah, I went when I was a kid, like I was 5 or 6.
Okay.
But I came here to visit Northwestern and UChicago, and I think DePaul too, at the end of my junior year, and ended up ranking UChicago probably 5th or 6th on my list of 8, and I matched with them. So I was like contractually obligated to come to the school, and it worked out.
So that's dope, first of all. And why I wanted to talk about it, because it's like with a lot of the host being in college, and B, a lot of the different guests, we've had kids in high school, we've had college kids themselves.
Yeah.
So there's this spectrum, I call it. I was telling them before we started filming earlier, where it's like you got people who are in high school and they're at a point where it's like, I don't want to go to school, and there's quite honestly no purpose to go to school because they're at a certain level with their product and their craft.
Yeah.
But then there's other people who started in school, like an interview that's coming out in the future. The guest started making music as a sophomore in college, so he was able to go through college without really thinking about dropping out. Is that what it was like for you? Or I'm just curious to know, like, did you ever think about dropping out of school at any time?
I did. I was pretty close in my head to dropping out, not actually putting pen to paper and signing.
But upstairs, you were ready to go. Yeah.
I was, I think I was a third year, and my first quarter of my third year, fall quarter, I went to Brooklyn to open for Awful Records, which one of my homies set up. Then a month later, I was back in New York to shoot a music video for one of my songs, which was SoundCloud popping at the time, if that counts. And for that time period, I just I didn't care about school. And I was so much more invested in music that I didn't really want to be in school. The classes I was taking, I wasn't interested in. The major I had at the time, I wasn't really interested in. And I think that quarter I withdrew from 2 of my classes just because I wasn't keeping up. I was so focused on getting to the show and rehearsing and all that stuff. I wasn't going to class. And yeah, in my head, I did want to drop out. But at the same time, the scholarship opportunity that was provided to me, like, it was letting me go to college for free. It's the difference between dropping out when you're paying 70, 80 racks to be there versus when it's just being given to you. So ultimately, even though I wanted to focus on music, I didn't feel like leaving free school was the best decision. So I stuck around. I switched my major to comparative race and ethnic studies, which allowed me to focus more on things that really interested me. The first class I took was called Slavery Since Emancipation. And immediately I was in a space where I was around more Black students and also just learning stuff that I actually cared about learning. And taking those types of classes for the remainder of my 2 years in college just kind of kept me focused on the end goal, which is just graduating, get the diploma, and then go do what you got to do. But up until that point, yeah, I wasn't really feeling school.
And are you glad now that you've completed it? Like, do you feel like any type of relief that you're like, man, like, I really got this degree from like a really great caliber school?
Yeah, I am glad in a general sense that I finished school, because I feel like if I hadn't finished school, I probably wouldn't have gone back to finish school.
Yeah.
And I think I would have been stuck on what I could have done had I finished, right? I didn't know that I was going to be in the position I am right now where I'm rapping full time, but had this not happened and had I not finished school, then I think I would have had a much harder time finding something that I really wanted to do without a college degree. And it wouldn't have been impossible, but overall I'm glad I finished, mostly because my parents wanted me to finish, and they got to see me graduate and everything like that. So yeah,
that's fine. And like, we'll get into like some of the stuff you've done when you were in college in a second, but like, do you have any kind of like lighter stories from when you were in school that are more or less on a funnier tip?
Yeah, all the shows were really fun. Like, I had my homies pull up from all over the place. Like, whether it's people who went to school there with me, who wouldn't even go to certain frats or whatever on a regular basis, but if I was performing, they'd pull up. I had homies who I would just hoop with at the gym who would pull up, who had, they didn't even know UChicago students at the time. They would just be in there trying to rap with me. All of those shows were just such crazy energy and so different than what I would normally experience at UChicago, and they were really the only times I would ever go out. But yeah, that was like, those are the most fun times I had for sure. Like performing and going to like the Black Student Union parties, the organization of Black student parties. But that was it. I really didn't go to clubs. I didn't do any of that stuff unless I was performing, but that shit was fun.
That's good. And like, excuse me, you've talked about it before, so we'll kind of keep it brief, but you did the TED Talk to college too, which I wanted to touch on because that's super cool. How did it come about? Like, how did that whole opportunity like arise for you?
If I remember correctly, there was the organization, I think, just started putting out feelers for people who might be interested in speaking through the TEDx organization.
Yep.
And I was sort of interested at first, and one of my friends, I think, told me, yeah, you should really do this, and you should try it out. And I didn't really know what I wanted to talk about at first, and then eventually I realized I wanted to talk about rap, because that's something I've always been passionate about. But specifically, the understated complexity of rap music, and how a lot of people give rap, or a lot of people have a lot of preconceived notions about rap that aren't really true, but they're based on what they hear on the radio. They're based on what's popular at the time, which isn't necessarily representative of rap as a whole. And it definitely isn't representative of the intellectual aspects of rap music that are often overlooked because people are so stuck on mainstream topics like money and cars and women and stuff like that, which is very much present in rap music, but that doesn't encapsulate the entire genre. So I wanted to talk about that. There were multiple rounds of application process. I had to kind of pitch myself. I had to pitch my idea. I had to do like a shortened version of the script, and eventually I got picked. And on the day of, that was like the most nervous I've ever been. Like outside any show, anything like that, I've never been that nervous before. I didn't remember half of my scripts. I was just like sitting on stage acting. It was nerve-wracking, but I think it was because it was such an important moment for me, and I was able to voice how I really felt about rap, which is something I loved at the time and love even more now. But that was one of the coolest experiences I had in college for sure. Like, I look back at that fondly. I wish I had remembered more of my script. But yeah.
Well, I watched it this morning, and it's an incredible piece because what you're talking about in there, especially when it pertains to the music, it's very valid today still. And I think there's a lot of people that could go watch that and learn a lot more about what this industry is about and what it really represents in a lot of ways. So when did you get out of what year did you get out of school?
2018.
Okay, so how did you, when you first kind of got out of school, like were you like looking for jobs, or were you just really locked in on the music thing?
So I wasn't locked in on music yet. I was still making music fairly consistently. I didn't have a job coming out of college, but basically the way I got my job was for the first 3 or 4 months of me being out of college, I would show up to the gym, I knew everybody who worked at the front desk. They just let me in. There's like a 2-week or 3-week grace period after you graduate, at which point you can buy an alumni membership. I didn't have like $500 whatever to buy the membership, but I knew everybody who worked there. They would let me in. And like 3 months later, there was somebody at the front desk who I didn't know who didn't let me in because I wasn't, we weren't tight like that. And she was like, "Oh, you got to buy a membership." And at that point, I decided, all right, I need to get a job here, so I have to buy a membership. So I was still working on music, but I was definitely more focused on playing basketball and lifting and stuff like that. And I was a little bit discouraged in months after that because I was putting out music. I wasn't getting the results that I thought I should be getting. I opened for Waka the year after that, like the first quarter of the next school year, and I'm thinking, everything's gonna go crazy now. Right? Like I'm gonna drop this mixtape, it's gonna go crazy. All the stuff that I was expecting to happen, but I didn't really put the work in for it. So I just got kind of discouraged with music in general, and I just kind of fell back into focusing on my job and just hooping and lifting, and I just fell off. So.
And then the pandemic, like when the pandemic first hit the country, like the States, how was that time period for you as an artist? Because it's different for everyone, and I'd imagine it was incredibly challenging to say the least.
Yeah, that was the moment so I lost my job at the beginning of the pandemic, so the gym shut down. I feel like, everybody went through that. A lot of people went through a similar thing, but there was no work for me anymore because I work at a gym. I'm not working for like a business or like a company where you're doing stuff online. I work in a physical space, so I couldn't work anymore, and I had to figure out what I was going to do. And my best option was really to move home and start looking for grad programs and PhD programs, or just to find a job to kind of tide me over until I could get accepted into a program. But I didn't really want to do that because I knew that moving home to West Palm Beach would mean that I would not be able to make music anymore because my studio is here. If it's in Chicago, I would go to my homie's crib a few blocks away every time I wanted to record. And that was when I decided that I wanted to give music one last push and just see if I could make something happen so that I wouldn't have to move home. I wouldn't have to start doing stuff that I didn't really want to do in order to make money. So I decided I wanted to drop a song every other week to get things started. We started with Bleach in mid-March, and then I think 1 or 2 songs in between Bleach and Gristle, which are now my 2 most popular songs. And stuff started picking up really quickly. And then at that point, it was my job to just be in the studio every single day. Like I was writing every day, recording almost every day. I basically lived in my engineer's crib. Like his family became my family because I was there so often. And that's what I did all pandemic. Every day we would go to the garage and lift those Blvck adjustable weights that he got. We would shoot around in his backyard. And the hoop that he brought, the basketball hoop that he brought from one of his family's crib, and we would get in the studio and we would just work. And I slept in the studio most of those nights. Like for the first 3 or 4 months of the pandemic, I was in the studio, living there for probably 90% of those nights. Just barely went home to eat, to see my cat.
You have a cat?
Yeah, I did have a cat. Yeah, when I lived in our last place, but she's good. She
didn't pass.
She didn't pass. Okay. She's living with her real owner now.
Okay.
But shout out Lois. Yeah, I was just in the studio all day, and it was hard, but it was also really encouraging to see those results after about a month of releasing bi-weekly, and it just pushed me to keep going. And I just had to stack those releases on top of each other.
Yeah. So shout out your engineer too.
Yeah, it was Chill, engineer, Caleb, one of my best friends on the planet, my real life brother. We became brothers because I was at his crib every single day.
See the dude who pulled up on us the swordfish video?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I've briefly met bro. But
shout out Chill.
That's a really interesting story. And Bleach, that's your most streamed song, right? How many streams is it at roughly right now?
It's 4.9 million.
Oh wow, so you're
2 days away from 5.
Yeah. It could have 5 million by the time it comes out.
Yeah.
This comes out.
Oh, it's gonna have 5.
Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Pre-congratulations for surpassing 5 million. Did you know it at the time? And I know that after what you just said, that question probably sounds like, what? Of course not. But once you started to kind of gain a little bit, were you like, wait a minute, I might have just did something?
Yeah, because about a month after it dropped, I had almost 10,000 streams. And I was really excited about that because I had never hit 10,000 streams on Spotify or anywhere. On Spotify, actually, on a song before. I've done it a few times on SoundCloud.
Okay.
Spotify had never hit 10,000 streams. So I'm hyped because I'm thinking it's going to hit 10,000 tomorrow and I'm going to be able to post about it. It's a big milestone, whatever. I wake up the next morning and I check the stats and it hit 12,000 instead. So I was like, what just happened? Next day it hit 14,000. I think by the end of that week it was at 20,000. I was like, I have no idea what's going on. I started looking into the like on the Spotify for artists, so you can show you what playlist things got on and all that stuff. And it got on Discover Weekly. And up until that point, I had no idea what any of that stuff meant. I didn't know about algorithm playlists. I didn't know about save rates. I didn't know about anything really. I was just putting out music. I didn't know about uploading music early. I uploaded Bleach to DistroKid like the day before it drops. I didn't even know that you were supposed to put up songs weeks in advance. I knew nothing. So I really had no idea that Bleach was going to pop. But once I saw that it was moving more quickly than my other songs, I was thinking to myself, I have to figure out what happened and I have to figure out how to replicate it for all my other songs. Which didn't happen because Bleach was just enjoyed more than those other songs. But when Bristol started to pop, I said, okay, I got 2 songs to focus on. These are the ones that I need to lock down in terms of the marketing, like running ads, all that stuff. And I got to figure out how to generate revenue, not just stream revenue, but like actual revenue. So.
And it's like once Bristol started to climb up a little bit, is that when you were, not that you weren't locked in at this point, but really like, okay, this is it now. Like, there's no quitting on this.
Yeah, it was, so Bleach was nice, but in the back of my head, I wasn't sure if it was a fluke or not. It had a high save rate, like the number of people who listened, the number of people who saved it to a playlist or an album, playlist or their library divided by the number of total listeners was pretty high compared to all my other songs. The next song I dropped, which was Needles, I dropped it 2 weeks after Bleach, didn't have anywhere near the same save rate, didn't have as many streams, any of that stuff. And also didn't perform as well when I ran ads on it on Instagram. I think Gristle came right after that one, maybe a month after that one. And when I saw Gristle moving too, I was like, okay, maybe Bleach wasn't a fluke. Maybe stuff is really happening. And I was already pretty focused at that point, but once Gristle started popping, that's when I realized that this wasn't just a one-off thing and that I could possibly do it again with another song. So I really started pushing with everything, but specifically pushing Bleach and Gristle into running ads.
And then Instagram ads. I mean, you talked about that, and we're for everyone in back like watching this, it's 2020, right? So it's a different era with social media.
Yeah.
How important was it to be using social media to promote your music?
That, I mean, honestly, that was more important. I would say that was more important than the streams because I was able, so once I figured out how to run ads, which took months, by the way, months, hundreds of dollars, not wasted because I still see them as going toward me learning how to run ads, right? But once I learned how to run ads, I started getting more followers. I started getting people DMing me about my music, a lot of compliments, stuff like that, but also people saying how much for a feature. At the time, I was probably charging like $50, $100 for a feature. Nothing crazy at all. But through running ads, I went from like 2,000 followers to 10 or 12,000 followers in 6-ish months. And also my numbers were going up because of Bleach on Spotify. Bleach, Gristle were pumping my numbers up, my monthly listeners, all that stuff. So I was able to justify raising my feature rate to the people who were asking me through DM how much I would charge for features. So I would take that money and put it back into Instagram ads, run more ads, get more followers, charge more for features as a result of having more followers and more monthly listeners, and I just had that on the cycle. So now I'm at about 14.5 thousand on Instagram, and that's largely overwhelmingly because I was running ads on Bleach and Gristle concurrently, and then more recently Swordfish. But back when I was running these ads, they were super cost efficient. end of 2019 and 2020, like whatever's happening with Instagram ads now, Instagram is clearly on its way out.
Yeah.
TikTok is that new thing.
Yeah.
But the way that the ads run now is different. It's nowhere near as cost efficient. But I feel like I got in at the perfect time, right before things really started to fizzle out. So I was able to capitalize on the Instagram ad algorithm and make enough money off of features to fund more streams, to fund more ads, and then just on repeat. So that was kind of it, over and over.
And then how do you see yourself? Like, do you see yourself moving into a TikTok space now that you have like a fan base and you really have people dedicating time to you and what you put out on Twitter? Because you're super active on Twitter too, for those who don't know. We're gonna get into that later. But do you see yourself wanting to move on to TikTok in at all, or like how do you really view that lane of this stuff?
It's not really a matter of want, to be honest. It's like a matter of like what's the smart business decision to make, and the answer is like, I'm going to. I just have to figure out how I'm going to do it in a way that's authentic to me, because I'm not going to be like doing dance routines.
That's not you.
That's not my style. I want to do something that's true to my music style, but also isn't going to be like the same exact content that I would put on Instagram, because as multiple people who are much more knowledgeable about how TikTok and the algorithm works explain to me, people aren't looking for that super polished kind of content that you would put on Instagram. And they're also not looking for the kind of prestige that's attached to Instagram, where you post once a week, or you post once every 2 weeks to keep things mysterious or vague or whatever. On TikTok, you post 4 times a day, nobody cares. And you're posting like rough videos of you that you're recording with your front-facing camera, you like pointing at stuff, doing all these things. Like, I just got to get used to the switch, because I've been doing Instagram for so long. But once I figure out how I want to attack it, then I'm going to make that pivot and really lean into it and see if I can generate some of the same success that I had with Instagram in its prime as I can with TikTok in its prime. So, waiting on it.
That's cool. And you got the right idea, because I think like with TikTok, it's not just a platform where people have to dance. And I think that's the thing. People are dancing to music. They're not just dancing.
Right.
So eventually it's like if you make a record that's really on a dance vibe, it's really easy to get that out there to like other influencers. That's one way you can grow it. Like I think with other artists, like just artists in general don't realize, like you can use TikTok without even being on the platform. Like my example for that point, like Baby Santana, right? He wasn't like putting videos of himself onto TikTok with his big anti-social song that blew up this past summer. Other people were just using it, whether it was over memes or dances or like you said, like kind of your grungy, like back camera, phone video, you know what I mean? And just because it's like the song spoke for itself, it blew up and did its thing. And I think that's a point that like a lot of artists gotta grasp to, you know what I mean? And unless it's advice, it's just like, you can use that tool. It's meant to be used for music, you know, and that's why it's like I think it's almost better once you figure out how you want to put yourself out there the right way, that's like the most authentic to you. It's almost better for artists, because it's like, bro, they're supporting sound. Like that's what they want. Like Instagram, when you were doing your thing, it wasn't as sound based. It was more content based on like how raw this looks, how hard is it, you know what I mean? Like what's the real engagement? Okay, let's get into your project that's out now, 50% Gratuity. Fire name. I gotta ask you how you came up with that. That's the first question.
I went to this spot with my homie Terrell. Shout out Terrell. Momotaro. You heard of that? It's in Fulton Market. It's a Japanese place.
I don't know if I have. I'm pretty familiar with Fulton, but I don't think I have.
It's a great spot. Like best sushi I've ever had. Completely in my head, like changed, like rewired how I think about sushi. Like the only sushi up until that point that I'd ever had was at like all you can eat buffets and stuff, where you like kind of drown in soy sauce and spicy mayo. I just thought that's what sushi was supposed to be like. But then I had this sushi, just straight up, and it was unbelievable. And I ordered way too much food, spent hell of money, much more than I anticipated buying. But it was like one of the best food experiences I've ever had. And tip the waiter 50%. And I could see, like, so the way we were sitting in front of the kitchen, and then in the corner is where like the waiters would take the bills and like enter everything into the system. And as we were about to leave, like I could see him pick up the tab and like look at it, like the look on his face when he saw the 50% was like, it just felt good, you know?
Yeah. No, thank you for doing that for somebody, first of all.
No, it's like, you know, so like waiters, food service, a lot of people don't get tipped a lot, especially now.
Yeah, I know.
I've been there, sort of. I work at Subway, so it doesn't really count. But yeah, it's more like having the means to do it is something that has pushed me to just be at more places, like eating at more places. But it's also just a testament to like the work that I put in music-wise to get to this point. So I wanted the EP to kind of reflect that, like the idea of elevation of everything, elevation of taste, elevation of palate, elevation of music skills, but also just elevation of like financial stability and what that means in terms of like the food that I eat, the music that I make. So
that's awesome. And so you've been dropping a bunch of singles, a couple videos, leading up to this. So what is one like overall message or theme that you would really think and hope that you're like the listeners of the project are going to take away from it?
I would say refinement. Just there's not necessarily a message that I'm putting forth through each song, but what I am trying to prove is that what I'm doing now is more polished, it's more refined, it's more self-aware, it's more thematically focused than anything else that I put out before. So I would describe this as not a sequel to Carpaccio, which I put out end of December 2020, or December 2020, but an evolution from that, to where everything is just elevated, everything is better. I've improved in every aspect of rapping, but I've also had more experiences in terms of food and in terms of everything, to where I can make better, fuller, richer music because of the experiences I've had since then. So I think just improvement, I guess, would be the theme, the overarching themes. I've gotten better at what I do and how I'm living than I was a year and a half ago.
Right. And when you were at the Japanese spot, is that kind of when you landed on like, all right, I'm going to make this EP? Or was it something you had been thinking about before then?
So at that point, I think all the tracks were recorded. Yeah, I'm pretty sure everything was recorded then, or at least like written and ready to go. I didn't have thoughts of an EP until I linked with the producer, Sebastian, when he came from the Netherlands, where he lives, to Chicago for a few weeks to just work in the studio. He works at South State. So he invited me to come over, and after 2 sessions, basically, we had like 3 tracks done, and a bunch more beats for me to go through to figure out which ones I wanted to add to. And he's the producer of Texture, by the way. So we came into contact, I think, end of 2020 to make that record.
Yeah.
His manager reached out to me, and we connected through that. But yeah, I didn't even have a plan to make the EP, but once we got in the studio together and he started showing me beats, I was like, these beats all sound so good. Like, they sound really good, but they also sound like they fit together. So got in the studio, wrote one, or recorded one. Got in the studio, wrote another one, recorded another one. That was 2 already. So I'm thinking, yeah, let's put a project together. He was thinking the same thing. So the title was the last piece to fall into place, and I wanted it to be something organic. I didn't want to think too hard about it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even until a few days after we went to Momentaro that I was I'd be kind of a cold name.
Yeah, well, it's just 50% gratuity. Like, that's a ring to it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like you're saying, it's not forced. It's very like authentic. And I think that's just a really, right. Like, there's abbreviations. Like, I had seen like your Twitter name is the abbreviated version of it at the time of recording. And it's like, it's super cool to see that like you were able to come up with that super authentically, like naturally. Like that's what I think is so cool about creatives in general. It's like when the creativity happens, like you're quite literally just sitting on your ass, you know, and you're not like trying too hard, but like that's sometimes when the best ideas come about. And, like, that's super cool that that's kind of how the name comes about from it. So your recording process, whether you're at the home studio, whether you're at like a soundscape or somewhere else, what is that like for you? I mean, you were just saying that you write. So you write all your music?
Yeah, write everything.
Did you like writing more versus freestyling a song, or like why do you do it the way you do it?
I'm just not as good at freestyling. Like it's not something I practice anymore. I have always been a better writer, and when I write, I feel like I am able to come up with sharper stuff. I can freestyle, like I could freestyle on a track, but it wouldn't have the same quality as if I write. So I've just always been better at writing. And there have been some stretches where I've been good at freestyling. I could do it for a few minutes because I would just do it all the time, and then get out of practice, and it's kind of like working out. Where if you don't do it, and you get back in the gym, you're not going to be able to do as high weight. You're not going to be able to do as many reps. So right now, I don't really freestyle so much. So everything's written. Recording process is pretty streamlined. Chill showed me how to record myself, so I pop in whenever. As I'm writing, I practice the song multiple times. Like basically every 4 bars I write, I practice. Does this flow? Cool. On to the next. 4. Does this flow? Does this 8 flow together? Cool. On to the next. Get a 16 done or 8 or whatever it is. Get on to the hook if I haven't written the hook already. Run through the hook a few times. Finish the whole song, whether it's like 8 hook 16, 16 hook 16, 32, whatever the song is, rap the whole thing through. Does this flow? Cool. We get in the studio. I've already rapped it 50 times. Right? Like I'm not popping in the studio to start practicing. I want to practice beforehand. And I got into that habit because when I first started recording, back when I was in college, and I recorded my first mixtape, I didn't have any bread, but I had to get into a studio to record. So I needed to make sure that I knew all 10 of those songs like the back of my hand before I even stepped in, so I wouldn't be spending extra hours, right? So now I do the same thing where I just really know how everything flows together, and I'm putting little notes in different spots where I need to take a breath and where I need to do X, Y, Z. So I get into the studio and I just slide right through it.
Yeah, that's hard. I think, again, in Chicago especially, there's just not enough emphasis on music writing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go to all these big studios, they got no writers. You know what I mean? It's just engineers. And it's hard to hear, it's refreshing too to hear that like you do write all your music. That's super cool. I want to transition now to what you do when you're not making music. Obviously, it takes up a lot of your time.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit off camera before. You just kind of got back into a consistent routine at the gym. Mm-hmm. You be hooping. You're a lefty.
Of course.
How are you You right left-handed?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're all left-handed.
Yeah.
Like you're grabbing the fork with the left. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a righty. What position? Like who are you guard? Like we're running the game of 5s, full court.
I'm a 1.
You're the 1.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not playing like a 3. You're not playing like. Because I would picture you as a 3. You're kind of a taller guy.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in 1 for as long as I've been playing.
Okay.
I wasn't good at shooting when I was younger, so and I also wasn't taller than everybody else. So I was naturally the 1. I was a really good passer. I didn't turn the ball over when I dribbled. I wasn't like crazy with the handles. I was very, very standard dribble package.
Are you quick?
Yeah. I would say I'm like, because I'm not like super frontline speed fast anymore, but in terms of like switching gears and stuff, I can do that.
Yeah, so that's hard. And like, what do you enjoy the most about playing pickup basketball?
I think slashing and just finding people on cuts, or just finding people open, putting the ball in the pocket, backdoor cuts, getting people open off, just like getting people in position to score. That's the most satisfying thing. Getting to the basket on the 1-on-1, or like you beat a double or whatever, you get a lay, that's cool. Like running a slip play off of a checkout, or like going to backdoor cut, that's like the most fun.
Yeah, and I can tell right there you know basketball. And like for people who listen who don't know me, I used to do sports a lot. I mean, basketball is what I was supposed to do before I did music. So I always love it when I get a guest who is enthralled with basketball, because on your Twitter, you be talking about the NBA all the time.
Yeah.
Do you have a team, or are you more or less like, I have favorite players?
I do have favorite players, and I have my favorite teams to watch. So I just like watching good basketball.
Yeah.
When Vince Carter was in the league, he was my favorite player. Still is my favorite player. So I would just follow him from team to team. He was on the Nets. I was a Nets fan. He got traded to, he went to Toronto. From Toronto to New Jersey to Dallas, I want to say.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. He's been on so many teams now.
Or maybe Orlando first.
He was on Orlando?
He was on Orlando. He was on Dallas. He was on Phoenix. He was on a bunch of teams. But I was a Vince Carter disciple. And once I started watching more basketball, I actually became obsessed with basketball. So at this point, big fan of the Heat, home team Heat.
Yeah.
But they're not my favorite team. They're my favorites to win it. But I enjoy watching a lot of
What's your favorite team?
I don't think I have one right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had one for probably since Vince Carter was in the league. You know?
Yeah. So who are your favorite players?
LeBron is my favorite of all time.
Wow. Okay. You can have a LeBron debate.
Or I guess who I think is the best of all time. Vince is my favorite. Vince, Dirk, and Jason Kidd are like my top three.
Okay.
For
just favorite players?
Yeah. But right now, I like watching the Heat. I like watching the Bulls. I like watching the Hornets.
Yeah.
I liked watching the Lakers. And they were looking a little bit more like a team.
Yeah.
But I also still enjoy watching LeBron, seeing him doing what he's doing.
Yeah. LeBron's not better than Jordan, though.
I can't see this isn't really an argument we can have because you're the Chicago guy.
I'm a Boston guy.
You're a Boston guy.
Yeah. So I'm fully telling you, like, it's not even that I hate LeBron. I actually respect LeBron. Like, my best friends back home, though, they hate LeBron. Like, they would throw water in his face if they could. Like, they don't like him. You know what I'm saying? And it's just based off, we've had a rivalry for 10 years now. You know what I mean? So there's some real hatred.
There should be hatred.
Yeah, and that's sports, right? And I think when I look at LeBron, though, to Jordan, it's just like, man, I just think Jordan's the better player. I don't know. And I think LeBron, he's second. This is just like all time, Jordan, LeBron. You can't not have LeBron in the top three, and he's certainly not three. So I know, I get why people put him one. I think if he gets another title or two, then we're having this conversation of like, all right, he's played on this many teams with about 200 players, with his damn son potentially in a couple years. I think his narrative and his story still isn't technically done. So it's going to be really, really close, though. You know what I mean? It's going to be really, really close. Like when you try to, like, once LeBron does retire, to like determine who's better than who. You gonna say something?
One thing I think about is that I think Mike benefited from not playing basketball during the social media age.
Yes.
And I think LeBron has, I don't even know what the opposite term is, or has been hindered by playing basketball in the social media age, because I didn't watch Michael Jordan play. I was not alive for 4 or 5 of those championships he won. So I see highlights, right? But that's all I see. I really only see the good. And I think most people our age only see the good. With LeBron, you see everything, right? Like you see the bad plays he makes, you see the low effort stuff, you see the flopping, you see all these different things. But we can judge him more harshly because we see all that stuff. Jordan is like, The Last Dance was like the Jordan propaganda machine gone wild, which is cool, right? Like that's what his documentary should be. But we don't get to see the errors. We don't get to see the mistakes. We don't get to see. I don't even know if we shot air balls because it's not documented. If it is documented, we don't see it. So.
I get what you mean. Like there's less montages of like Jordan fails than LeBron fails. I get what you're saying.
We see that every night now.
Yeah.
You know? And it doesn't really matter that he's 37 or 27 or whatever, but we just see more of those failures to be able to compare. Oh man, Mike went 6-0. Mike did this. Mike did that. We're just not seeing what Michael did in the opposite way, right? So I think it's easier to judge LeBron than it is Jordan, at least for me, because I didn't see Jordan play.
Yeah.
But that's just a small side.
I got you. And then one more basketball question.
Yeah.
Who are the top players in the NBA that are under 25 besides Jason Tatum?
LaMelo.
Facts.
Ja.
Facts.
DeJounte Murray, is he under 25?
Man,
I think he's been in the league for like 3 years.
That's a sneaky one if he is. I want to say he's like, I would feel like he'd be 26, 25, like right at that bubble. Kind of like Jaylen Brown. I was going to say like besides Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but I don't know if Jaylen Brown's in there.
DeJounte Murray's cold.
Yeah, he's really good.
Let me think. Jalen Green is looking good.
Yeah,
I think he's up there.
Missing one big one. Luka.
Oh, he is. Yeah, he's young.
Yeah, Luka's younger than both of us.
Yeah.
he's different.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, man. Like Luka's a different breed. Like it's hard not to watch him play and just be like, how did he go 5? I know Aiden's good. It's no diss to Trey. It's no diss to Aiden. Aiden should be in that list too. But it's just like, no, man. Like Luka's a different breed of like basketball player.
I think there will always exist like the foreign player bias.
Yes.
And you see it with how commentators talk about Giannis, right? How they kind of use his 100%. Like people would never talk about Westbrook and like the way that he played, leaves it all on the court. Never takes a playoff, all that stuff. It was never a bad thing. But then when Giannis does it, it's kind of something that a lot of these commentators ridicule. It's like, oh, look at Giannis, he's a tryhard, this and that. There's like a very clear line that's being drawn between like the American-born players, the foreign-born players, and the foreign-born players don't get that same type of respect in a general sense. Like Luka does, right? But when he was coming out of college, or when he was coming out of Real Madrid, right?
Yeah, Real Madrid.
He didn't get that same type of love. But it's also, I think, more difficult for teams, franchises to predict how good a player is going to be coming from Europe to the NBA. And it just turns out that he was not only as good as advertised, but better. And a lot of players like Andrea Bargnani and Darko Milicic out with that. So,
right. Even who was the one for Phoenix, bro? Dragon Bender. That was a good one. That's a classic one. I feel like you can use. It's like more modern day. We gotta talk about the footwear. You got the Balenciagas with the vitamin socks.
Yes.
So it's a recurring question. I asked every single guest that's been on the show this question. What are your top 3 sneaker models? Not colorways, just models.
Air Max 98, Seichi sandals, and I'll be these.
The triple S's?
Yeah.
So the second or third, I can't remember, second or third that's done the triple S's.
They're just like,
what were the sandals?
The Seichi, which is not like a super big brand. I just saw them on Instagram one day. They were one of those ads that,
on your story or something.
And I was like, these look kind of hard. Let me see if this is a scam. Wasn't a scam. Copped them. Most comfy sandals I've ever had. So I got those in rotation. I'm actually going to buy like 2 or 3 more pairs for this upcoming summer. But I like these a lot. I like the colorways that they have. I've been looking to add to the roster a little bit. I'm going to get like the dark kind of gold yellow color. And the red pair isn't like the red that I'm looking for, so I'm probably going to skip those. But they got a navy set that I think will look tough. But yeah, they're warm enough for the winter. They're fine to wear in the summer. They're a little heavy, but that just means my vertical.
It's going to be up, yeah.
Yeah, take these off. I switched to my hoop shoes, and I'm jumping out of the gym.
Do you wear Jordans at all, or no?
I don't. I've only had 1 pair. And I wore them to hoop. And they were beaters when I got them. They were the Citrus 7s. And I wore them into the ground for like 3 straight months, and then I got tendonitis in both of my knees because they were basically socks. But yeah,
7s are brutal. Well, 7s are brutal. No diss to Jordan 7s, but it's like that's not like if I'm gonna hoop in a Jordan, I'm not gonna put on a 7. You have hoop in 8s. That's probably their best hoop during retro. 1s are underrated because they're super light.
Yeah.
So you can just fly around. Like it feels like you're wearing damn near like socks. Seriously.
Yeah.
2s are really good.
Okay.
3s are bricks. It's like playing in those. It's just not going to do anything for you. 4s, but like I don't know.
I've definitely seen people hooping in.
Yeah, a lot of people hoop in 4s, but like it's not really the best for hooping. Like an 8 is really good for hooping. A 10 is really good for hooping. Even a 9. You can mess around with the 9s. Like the cherry 9s are dropping this year. Those would break a couple necks on your gym, bro. What are you hooping?
I hoop in, what do I have? I got LeBron Witness 10s, which are like high enough.
Yep.
I like the higher shoes, but I did get a few low tops when recently. I got the 16 lows, LeBron 16 lows, which are nice and tight to the foot. That's all I got right now.
Yeah.
I flipped those two around.
No, I'm playing LeBron stuff. LeBron's stuff. It's crazy because Nike basketball went from being like shit you see on these shelves, going for as much as literally anything that's hip right now in sneakers, to like an afterthought. And what's so raw, is the stuff that was like idolized in that brief moment in time is still so raw today.
Yeah.
And I think now it's just so much more based on performance. So you got like LeBron stuff, bro. Like he's a truck. So his shoes are
big ass, that's shoes.
Big guy, you know. So I've played in LeBron's. I had like the 15s. That was one of the best like modern basketball shoes I've ever played in because they're so comfortable.
Yeah,
the ones with the strap, they go like around the ankle, kind of like that, to be honest. But they're so comfortable. Easily one of my favorite like modern day hoop shoes.
Yeah, I sprained my ankle for the first time like my 4th year in college, and I almost exclusively wore LeBron's up until that point. Not even because I'm a LeBron fan, just because the shoes are so sturdy and thick and high that I just rarely have ankle issues when I wear those shoes. The lows are different because they're lows, and that's when I've had my recent sprained ankles and stuff. But whenever I have issues, I switch back to the Witness 10s, and I'm fine. Now I can roll my stuff, and it'll just stay in place. I don't have any issues. So.
Nice. So what do you do when you're not hooping, you're not in the gym, when you're not enjoying good food? Here's a good one. What are your top 3 food places in the city?
Ooh, Pasta House. It's on 31st and Hollister. Number 2 is probably Momotaro. Gotta be in there now.
Yeah.
That sushi just changed my life.
Changed your life, yeah.
And number 3, there's this place called El Mesquite, Taqueria El Mesquite. What is that? Humboldt Park, I think.
Okay.
I forget which neighborhood, but like best burrito I've ever had. Best burritos I've ever had. So that's that's a soft 3. I got like a hard 6 or 7, but that 3 right there.
The floor is yours.
What else? Jibarito Sin Mas. That's a big one. I really like Morcilla, so that's like my favorite place to go for that. It's 4. What else do I like? I have Cheesecake Factory, of course. I think that rounds up to 5.
Yeah.
But that's just
one here. 5. Yeah, that's a solid 5. Like that's a lot of different types of cuisines.
Yeah,
you know
gotta keep it switched up.
Gotta have your food diverse.
Yeah.
What I was asking you before, what do you do when you're not enjoying like good play or hitting the gym? What do you kind of spend your time doing?
I've been watching a lot more TV now that I have a TV, like for the first time.
Oh, damn.
Like this apartment that I currently live in is the first time I've ever had a
TV.
So
Damn.
like Netflix, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Going through all the shows. And I'm trying to get into leisure reading again. Wow. It's been a while since I've read for fun.
Yeah.
But I'm really trying to focus more on doing that and just kind of for fun, but also for expanding my knowledge. Like I just ordered 2 books. One is called Medical Apartheid, and the other one is called Viking Economics. The first one is about, I believe it's about the American healthcare system and how, in the discrepancies that occur within it based on racial disparities. And the Viking Economics book is about the success or the efficacy of the socialist systems in place in the Nordic countries and like how it works, why it works, that type of stuff. So those are on the way, and I'm gonna try to start with those. Tried to start a few months ago with a very dense book called The Anti-Slavery Debate. It was just too much information. I got to like 30 pages and just gave up because I couldn't hack it anymore. But reading is just something I want to get back into, so I'm not just spending all my free time watching TV and stuff, but even like actually learning things again.
And what have you dabbled with on Netflix?
Currently watching, my favorite show like all time right now is I Think You Should Leave. Incredible. You know.
People in the back know what's up with that one. I'm personally not hip, but I'm a huge.
It's a sketch comedy show.
Okay.
Just absurdly funny, like laugh out loud.
Okay.
Recently, what else have I watched? The Last OG.
Yeah, I've heard
with Tracy Morgan.
Yeah.
I caught up with that. What else have I watched? Good Girls.
Heard of that.
On Netflix. That's like the best Netflix show I've ever seen. Like in terms of like funniest show, I Think You Should Leave. Good Girls, like the show.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well,
type three.
that's hard. Yeah, that's hard. You just gave me 3 new ones. I haven't seen any of those, so. I don't have any more questions for you. If they don't know already where to follow you, just kind of say where people should follow you on social medias and where they can find your music.
Instagram, Blvck Svm, with V's instead of A's for trademark purposes. Twitter, same thing, but with the 954 at the end, Blvck Svm 954. YouTube, Blvck Svm, Spotify, Apple Music, all that, Blvck Svm. That's about it.
Thank you for joining me here today. This was great. It was super fun. That's going to do it for this episode of the Culture Capture Spotlight podcast. Give a quick thanks to Iridium in the comments for hosting us, and we'll be back with you guys soon with another episode.